We live with the constant assumption that an invisible network of protection surrounds us. We trust that police patrols, intelligence agencies, and global military bases are enough to keep the chaos of the world from reaching our front doors. That trust splintered on a Sunday evening in Seattle. Families were gathered at the Seattle Center for a food festival when the familiar sounds of a summer evening were replaced by the sharp whoosh of bullets and the screams of crowds running for cover. Thousands of miles away in Berlin, the same expectation of safety was shattered. During the city's massive Pride celebration, a vehicle bypassed the security perimeter and plowed directly into a designated safe zone, turning a festival into a crime scene. At the same time, across the Middle East, air raid sirens began to wail over the cities of Kuwait and Manama. Residents watched as the horizon lit up, not with fireworks, but with the flashes of incoming drone strikes and the explosions of interceptor missiles. While these incidents occurred in different corners of the globe, they point toward a shared reality. The traditional security systems we once considered definitive barriers to violence are struggling to contain a new era of decentralized and high-volume aggression. The shooting in Seattle happened in the shadow of the Space Needle, one of the most heavily policed and monitored areas in the city. Yet 2 shooters opened fire on each other in the middle of a crowd of thousands, leaving 3 people dead and 4 others wounded. In the aftermath, the trauma was captured by a family that survived only by taking cover behind a tree. They were left looking at one another in the silence that followed, asking how they were still alive after a bullet landed just inches from where they stood. A similar failure occurred in Berlin's Tiergarten Park. This sprawling public space was the focal point for a Pride event involving hundreds of thousands of people, backed by a massive police presence and established security protocols. Despite these measures, 21-year-old Abdul Balut drove a van into the crowd and began attacking bystanders with a machete. Balut was already known to German intelligence and had even been arrested for attempting to join ISIS. Yet the very systems designed to flag him failed to prevent him from entering the city's most sensitive public gathering. These failures suggest that a physical police presence and intelligence watch lists are no longer sufficient to stop individuals determined to strike within the safe zones of a modern city. The breakdown of deterrence is even more visible on the geopolitical stage. The United States recently launched a campaign of precision strikes against Iranian infrastructure, hitting railways, airports, and even maritime traffic control towers in an attempt to force the regime to back down. But overwhelming force did not lead to a ceasefire. Instead, Iran retaliated with its most intense barrage of the conflict, revealing the true scale and reach of its missile and drone arsenal. To bypass sophisticated American defenses, Iran uses a saturation tactic. This involves launching synchronized swarms of drones and ballistic missiles simultaneously from several different directions. The goal is simple: to overwhelm the defenders' reaction time and force them to exhaust their limited inventory of high-end, multi-million-dollar interceptor missiles on a flood of much cheaper targets. This creates a dangerous situation for Gulf nations like Kuwait and Bahrain, who host major U.S. military bases specifically to ensure their own security and deter Iranian aggression. Because these nations host American assets, they have become primary targets. Iranian strikes intended for the bases have hit nearby civilian infrastructure, including Kuwaiti desalination plants that provide nearly 90% of the country's drinking water. For these nations, the deterrent has become a liability. The military bases intended to prevent a war have instead served as the catalyst for the destruction of their most vital civilian resources. In Washington, the administration has responded to the failure of deterrence by vowing to escalate even further. President Trump has threatened to target Iranian power plants and bridges, while keeping the possibility of a ground invasion on the table. This has led to a dangerous cycle where both sides believe they are making gains through controlled escalation. Traditional diplomacy has been abandoned, replaced by a dialogue that is now spoken entirely through airstrikes and retaliatory barrages. As the conflict spreads, Gulf states are beginning to realize that their reliance on the U.S. security umbrella may no longer be sustainable. The protection they were promised is now the very thing drawing fire to their cities. This is triggering a shift in the region's balance of power. Faced with the limits of American deterrence, these nations are looking toward new alliances with regional powers like Turkey, Egypt, and Saudi Arabia to secure their future. This erosion of trust is happening at every level of society. Gulf states are recalculating their survival without a superpower's help, much like individual citizens are realizing that even a crowded, policed park no longer guarantees their safety. We have entered a period where the legacy systems of deterrence have reached their limit. As the old shields fail, nations and individuals alike are being forced to rethink what it actually takes to survive in an increasingly volatile and unpredictable world.